The afternoon sun poured down in broad golden strokes, warming the village and stretching long shadows across the lanes. The air was alive with the small comforts of a day that seemed to carry no urgency. Children chased one another across the square, their laughter echoing off brick walls. Women tended gardens at the edges of their homes, stooping to pluck weeds or water rows of herbs. Men leaned on shovels or rested on wooden benches, pausing from their morning's work to talk quietly in the light. The ground beneath their feet seemed solid, untroubled, earth that had borne their weight for generations. Paths were swept, gardens neat, and the air carried the gentle scent of soil, grass, and the faint sweetness of ripening fruit from nearby orchards. Birdsong drifted lazily from the hedgerows. A dog barked once, startling a few pigeons into the sky. Beyond the houses, fields shimmered with heat, stalks of grain swaying gently in the breeze. It was the kind of day that lulled hearts into certainty, convincing everyone that nothing dangerous could exist beneath such brightness. Neighbors greeted one another as they passed, carrying baskets, pails, or tools. Smoke from cooking fires rose in slender ribbons, curling into the pale blue sky. The hum of daily life was steady, unbroken, like a song that promised safety in its rhythm. No one looked twice at the soil underfoot. No one imagined that within it, hidden just beneath the surface, a silent hazard stirred, sparks waiting for the smallest chance to break free. And no one guessed that the first sign of trouble would come not from human hands or watchful eyes, but from the restless claws of a small, spiny creature already making its way toward the heart of the village. Along the garden paths, where rows of herbs perfumed the air with mint and rosemary, a small shadow moved. The hedgerows stirred, and out from beneath their shelter waddled a hedgehog, its round body low to the earth, its spines glinting faintly in the afternoon sun. At first, no one paid it much attention. Hedgehogs were no strangers here, and their evening visits often amused the children. But this one had come earlier than usual, in the full light of day. Its black eyes glittered with a restless intent. Its nose twitched rapidly as it snuffled along the path, sniffing the air as though following a trail only it could sense. It paused near a patch of damp earth, snorting softly, then pressed its tiny claws into the soil. A few villagers noticed and smiled. "Look there," a woman chuckled, nudging her neighbor. "A guest for the gardens." A child darted closer, crouching low to watch, whispering in awe, "It's digging!" The hedgehog shuffled forward a few inches, then stopped abruptly, its body stiffening. Its snout pressed hard against the ground, as though something beneath had caught its attention. It gave a sharp squeak, then dug with sudden vigor, sending small sprays of dirt scattering behind it. The villagers laughed at the sight. The little creature working with such determination, its tiny paws moving faster than seemed possible. "Looking for worms," someone said with a grin. Another shook his head, amused. "Or hiding from the sun." But if the hedgehog heard them, it gave no notice. It scraped at the same spot again and again, refusing to move on, refusing to be distracted. Its whole body trembled with effort, its snuffling louder, sharper, almost anxious. The dog that had been dozing in the shade lifted its head, ears flicking. It gave a low growl, watching the hedgehog with puzzlement, as if sensing something off in the animal's urgency. Still, the villagers only smiled at the little intruder. To them it was harmless, even charming. But the hedgehog's movements were not random, nor playful. Its claws dug with purpose, driven by an instinct sharper than human senses, an instinct that had already detected what no villager yet imagined. Beneath the soil, something hissed faintly, a sound too soft for human ears, too deep to catch through chatter and laughter. But the hedgehog had heard it, smelled it, felt it, and it would not leave until it was uncovered. The hedgehog's paws worked furiously, tearing at the soil in bursts that sent clumps of dirt scattering across the cobblestones. Its sides heaved with effort, its spines bristling as if charged with its own invisible electricity. It squeaked sharply between digs, the sound high and insistent, before thrusting its nose back into the earth. Children clapped and laughed at first, fascinated by the tiny storm of energy. Look how fast it digs, one shouted, eyes wide. A little girl reached out as though to touch it, but her mother pulled her back, shaking her head with a smile. Let it be. It's just looking for food. But the digging did not stop. Minute after minute, the hedgehog clawed at the same patch of ground, refusing to move an inch away. Its body shook with the force of its effort, soil piling around its paws in ragged mounds. When one villager tried to shoo it aside with a broom, the creature hissed, curled briefly into its spiny ball, then immediately sprang back to the exact same spot, resuming its furious scratching. The mood began to shift. Laughter faltered. The dog in the square rose to its feet again, hackles bristling, a low growl rippling from its throat. The hedgehog's squeaks now sounded sharper, strained, more like cries than chatter. Villagers exchanged uncertain looks. Strange little thing, one muttered. It won't stop. Another frowned, shading his eyes as he peered closer. It's not digging for food. It's warning? The hedgehog's claws scraped so hard that sparks of grit leapt from the stones. Its nose twitched wildly, head jerking back as though the air carried a bitter scent. With sudden desperation, it clawed deeper, squealing sharply. And then, faint but real, some of the villagers felt it too. A strange, acrid smell, like burned air drifting just beneath the scent of soil. One man bent low, pressing his hand against the earth. A faint vibration trembled through his palm. The hedgehog squealed again, frantic, digging faster, its tiny body shaking with alarm. The villagers stared in silence now. What had seemed like a curiosity was becoming something else entirely. A warning written in paws and dirt. Something was alive beneath the soil. The crowd that had gathered around the hedgehog shifted uneasily, their murmurs breaking into nervous questions. What had started as amusement now felt heavier, each frantic scrape of the little creature's claws pulling their attention downward. The dog growled again, ears pinned back, pacing in tight circles as though it, too, wanted to keep away from the spot. The hedgehog squeaked shrilly, hurling dirt aside with unrelenting force. Its spines trembled, every ounce of its small body fixed on the hidden threat. One villager crouched low, pressing his palm to the earth. He jerked it back almost instantly. It's warm, he whispered, his face pale. The ground. It's warm. A woman knelt beside him, her brow furrowed. She leaned down and sniffed. At first, all she smelled was damp soil. But then, beneath it, a sharper scent crept through, acrid, biting like scorched air. Her eyes widened. That's not earth. That's burning. The murmurs rose louder now, threads of panic woven into the sound. Neighbors glanced at one another, brows knit tight. A child tugged at his father's sleeve, pointing. Papa, listen! And indeed, beneath the noise of chatter, beneath the squeaks and scrapes, a faint sound whispered up from the ground. A soft sizzle, a crackle like paper catching flame. The hedgehog froze, nose pressed to the soil. Then, with a sharp squeal, it redoubled its efforts, digging as if to tear the danger out with its tiny paws. Get back, someone warned, pulling the children closer. Faces that had been smiling only minutes ago were now taut with unease. The villagers bent closer, searching the churned patch of earth the hedgehog had uncovered. Between clumps of soil, something dark glimmered. Not stone, not root. It carried a faint, unnatural sheen. The smell grew stronger, the sizzle louder. The hedgehog cried again, stamping its tiny paws as though it could not understand why the humans hesitated. Its small black eyes glinted with urgency, fixed on the hidden thing below. And for the first time, the villagers truly understood. This was no random intrusion. The creature was pointing them toward something buried beneath their very feet, something dangerous, something alive with sparks. The villagers gathered closer, their voices dropping to hushed tones as though raising them might disturb whatever simmered beneath the soil. The hedgehog's claws tore one last clump of earth away, and for the first time, the danger showed its teeth. A faint glimmer winked up from the dirt, not the shine of water or stone, but the metallic gleam of something man-made. The hedgehog squealed and leapt back, its spines bristling, before circling the spot again with restless urgency. One man knelt with a stick, gingerly scraping more soil aside. A murmur of alarm rippled through the crowd as tangled wires came into view. Their casings cracked and split like dry bark. Through the broken insulation, copper shone, glowing faintly where blue sparks snapped and hissed. Crackle. Snap. Tiny arcs of light leapt across the gap, burning the surrounding dirt with the smell of charred roots. Smoke curled upward in ghostly threads, acrid and thin, stinging the villagers' noses. The ground itself seemed alive, buzzing faintly as if carrying a pulse. Each spark danced with a predator's patience, waiting for dry grass, spilled oil, or a careless step to ignite into fire. Gasps broke out. Someone whispered, "If this spreads," another cut in, voice tight, "it could burn the whole row of houses." Fear spread swiftly. The villagers edged back, dragging children behind them, eyes wide at the sight of fire trapped beneath the soil. The hedgehog squeaked again, stamping its tiny paws, circling the wires as though to drive the point home. This was not nuisance. This was danger. The acrid air thickened. Sparks leapt higher, brighter, hissing like snakes. The hedgehog, trembling with effort, let out a long, thin cry, its message now undeniable. What had seemed like an ordinary afternoon had revealed something treacherous lurking beneath the earth, an electrical fault, hidden and festering, waiting to set the village alight. And it had taken the frantic digging of a small, spiny creature to bring it into the light. The sight of the sparking wires sent the village into a sudden storm of motion. Fear crackled in their voices, matching the hiss of the fault beneath the soil. Children were herded back into doorways, their small faces pale with confusion. Men shouted over one another, their words sharp with urgency. "Shut off the power. Bring soil. Cover it before it spreads. Keep everyone away." One man sprinted toward the small utility shed at the edge of the square, keys jangling at his belt. He wrenched the door open, fumbling with trembling hands at the breaker switches inside. With a heavy clunk, the line was cut. For a moment, silence seemed to rush in. But when the villagers turned back to the churned patch of ground, sparks still spat angrily from the broken wires. The damage was already done. "Buckets!" another voice cried. Villagers dashed to fetch pails of soil from their gardens, heaving them into the square. With careful hands, they piled the dirt high, trying to insulate the exposed metal. Each scoop hissed faintly as it struck the sparking wires, smoke curling up in thin, bitter threads. Others grabbed long wooden poles, using them to shift clumps of earth into the hole, careful never to let flesh come close. Sweat ran down their faces, mixing with dust, streaking their cheeks as they worked. The hedgehog sat back now, trembling but unrelenting, its small black eyes fixed on the danger, as though keeping guard. Each time a spark leapt, it squeaked sharply, drawing the villagers' attention, urging them to press harder, faster, until the hiss began to muffle beneath the weight of soil. "More! Bring more!" someone shouted. A line formed, neighbors working in rhythm, passing buckets hand to hand until the earth swallowed the last flash of light. The acrid smell hung heavy, but the sparks dimmed, then vanished altogether, smothered beneath layers of dirt. At last, the square was still. The villagers sagged where they stood, muscles aching, lungs burning from smoke and fear. For a moment, all anyone could hear was the ragged pull of their own breaths. Then came the quiet, relieved murmur, "It's out. It's safe." All eyes turned to the hedgehog. The tiny creature sniffed the soil once, then gave a small, tired squeak, curling briefly into a ball before uncurling again to waddle a few steps away. Its work, it seemed, was finished, and the villagers, shaken but safe, knew they had been warned in time, not by chance, but by the relentless persistence of the smallest among them. The village square bore the marks of battle, though not one fought with swords or fire, but with earth, sweat, and urgency. The ground where the hedgehog had dug was now a dark mound of fresh soil, packed high and damp. Around it lay abandoned buckets, wooden poles, and discarded tools, all bearing witness to the frantic struggle of the afternoon. The danger had passed. The acrid smell still lingered, faint but fading, as the air cooled with the approach of evening. Families stood together in small groups, their voices hushed, as if speaking too loudly might wake the menace buried beneath their feet once more. Children clung to their parents, whispering the story already, the hedgehog that saved the homes. On a garden wall, the little creature rested. Its sides rose and fell with slow breaths, its spines catching the late sun like tiny needles of gold. It licked its nose once, then sat still, calm now, its frantic energy gone. Where it had clawed the soil raw, it now seemed content to simply watch. The villagers gathered nearby, their gazes drawn to it with a mix of awe and gratitude. The elder of the village, his hands still dark with dirt, spoke softly. We thought it a nuisance, a small creature, nothing more. But it listened to the earth when we did not. It felt the danger before we could see it. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Mothers nodded, clutching their children closer. Men exchanged silent looks, shaken by how close they had come to disaster. The hedgehog gave a soft grunt, shuffling its paws as though dismissing the weight of their attention. But in every villager's heart, the truth had settled. What they had dismissed as odd, even bothersome, had turned out to be a voice of warning. The afternoon sun dipped lower, painting the rooftops in orange firelight. The village exhaled as one, their homes intact, their lives unscathed, and they knew as they turned to return to their work and families that they would never look at the small wanderer in the same way again. The hedgehog had shown them a truth as sharp as sparks in the soil. Sometimes salvation comes not from strength or wisdom, but from the relentless persistence of a creature no one thought to heed.